Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Train to Busan is over. You'll stay with me, Daddy. Won't you?
부산으로 가는 KTX 406 열차가 곧 출발합니다.
저기요. 이상한 사람이 하나 타고 있는 것 같은데.
팀장님, 여기 11호차 응급 환자 발생했습니다.
Andy, we've talked about zombie movies on this show. How have we not talked about Train to Busan? Why? I feel like we just forgot that it existed.
Well, to be fair, we started this show before this movie came out, so...
Well, I know, but this is I am a legit fan of this movie, and I feel like I owe it an apology that we haven't talked about it more on this show. So I'm sorry. Train to Busan, I'm really, really sorry.
Well, we're here now, so everything is okay.
We're going to try and make it up to you.
Yes, indeed.
And your sibling, Peninsula, next week.
Yes.
And Soul Station, which
Yeah.
I think both of us watched.
We both watched.
So,
Maybe we start there. I think it's funny that we built this entire season on franchises, and I don't know how in the process of doing research and building all these things that neither of us noted as we were putting this on that we realized that there was a third film in this series. Like, even looking at it on the website, I was just like, oh, it's just Train to Busan and Peninsula. I didn't even note that Soul Station was an actual, legit feature-length entry into this franchise. So maybe down the road, we'll do a bonus episode and we'll talk about this. But yeah, it's worth mentioning for sure.
I think it's absolutely worth mentioning that it exists. It is a prequel to Train to Busan, but only insofar as it's set in the same universe. There's still plenty of zombies. It's not like...
Yeah, it's funny because I kept seeing, it's an animated prequel. It's an animated prequel. And I'm like, okay, it's going to kind of set up how the zombies end up at the Soul Station where our heroes, they board the train to begin with, and kind of set that whole story up. And then it wasn't that. It wasn't even a prequel, setting up how the zombies came to be. It was just, I suppose, what I've read of Peninsula, which I still have yet to watch, it very much is just another sort of story where it's another entry into this universe where it's people fighting against zombies. This one Soul Station just happens to be earlier in the night and early morning of the story where Train to Busan takes place.
Yes, and I think that's the same. My memory of Peninsula is rough. I think it's 4 or 5 months later, and so it's a sequel only insofar as it takes place later in time.
Yeah, and that's what Soul Station is. It's a prequel only because it takes place earlier in time.
Yep. But and it was fine. I actually look forward. I think doing it as a bonus episode is perfect. It's worth a watch for sure, especially in universe. And but today is we're actually on the train.
On the train, yes.
So this one is one of the movies that takes on zombies from the perspective of the disease, mysterious biochemical outbreak.
Yes.
And there is something that goes on. Now, here's the thing that I need to talk about in terms of setting up the movie, which is not completely clear to me. In the beginning of the movie, we meet our principal character.
Not quite the beginning of the movie. We have a whole prologue first, yes.
There is a prologue, and it's actually the doll, the waving doll.
The creepy...
the construction doll.
Yeah,
I love him
creepy
so much.
Mannequin, yeah.
Yeah, he's my spirit animal. So after that initial sequence, we'll come back to that. The setup is there is this fund manager. Dad is a fund manager, and he is talking to his boss, and the boss says, sell everything. We're selling everything. And then his peon comes in and says, Dad, what are we doing? And Dad says, sell everything. But wait, there will be repercussions. There will be fallout if we do this. This is going to be bad. And he says, do you work for the Lemmings? And that's a rhetorical question because obviously the answer is yes. That's the setup. They sell everything. But my understanding is this thing, the disease, because of our little prologue, is already out somehow. They sell everything. Then much later in the movie, Dad picks up his phone on the train, and Peon is there and says, is this our fault? Is this our fault? Because they sold everything. Somehow there was a disruption and the disease got out to connect directly corporate failure and greed to disease being released into the world. Is that your understanding too, or am I making that up completely?
Oh, no, I think it's absolutely set up that way where
good.
They're one of the companies that they fund, one of these biotech companies that they're providing funding for, is the one that is behind what got out when they realized that the company that where this came from is something that they funded. That's that realization that they have partway through the film, that they, in a certain extent, are responsible.
Yes, it's somehow the news of them selling and everybody, I'm imagining layoffs and strikes and all kinds of horrible things because the people have been let down by their corporate overseers. And as a result, something breaks, disease gets out.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking that. Because I wasn't thinking it was, I didn't think it was necessarily tied to that first conversation about sell everything. I thought that was a totally different thing. It's just showing how kind of cutthroat they are and the sorts of decisions they make. I just assumed that they ended up funding the wrong company that ended up being responsible for all of this. And because they were looking at profits rather than, let's just say, more morals, corporate morals, they ended up funding a company that created something that did escape in that deer and then got into the general population. That was how I interpreted it.
Oh, okay. I prefer it either way. I actually don't have a strong opinion over that. The bottom line for me is the fact that this is a story about profits over people. It's very core, and the people get real mad and sick and start eating each other. And
pretty much.
You had me at eating each other. Let's go back to the prologue briefly because we have to introduce our friend Bambi. Because I'm sure this is what the live action Bambi is going to look like.
It's an interesting open. And, we used to talk about kind of first shot, last shot as kind of a compositional choice that directors would do. And I found this one to be interesting because the first shot of this film is the face, the kind of frozen face of this construction mannequin. And then we kind of pull back and we see, its arm is moving up and down as it's kind of, letting people know that this is a zone, like a contaminated zone sort of thing, right? So it's basically like a warning for vehicles. And the last shot of this film is a close-up of our young daughter that we have, Seok-woo's daughter, Soo-an. And so it was just interesting to kind of cut from like this frozen face at the start of this film, this mannequin's face, to this young girl at the end. And I suppose it's like finding the humanity in the story is, if we're looking for a thread in first shot, last shot, I suppose there's something. But yeah, it's an interesting way to set the story up where this is kind of like, how does this thing, I don't know if it's how it gets out. It seems like it was already out if whatever this infection is in the deer. It's just that this guy happens to kill the deer and the deer zombifies. And I don't know, based on what we saw, if you had watched Seoul Station, I don't know. I guess there's nothing that tells us how much earlier this particular scene happens, right?
Yes.
Like it's not necessarily the same day?
We don't know. I don't know if it's the same day. My understanding, my read of it was that the deer was already a zombie and he hit it. And it was able to stand. Like we didn't just witness its first transformation, is what I'm saying. That it was already.
Oh no, we did, because we see it dead on the road, right?
Well, but it was hit by a car, right? Like it could have been infected already, hit by a car, and get back up. They're very resilient, these things.
Well, and that's a good point. I guess I would have assumed it would have gotten up a lot quicker because it seems it's more akin to the people that we see later who are dead and then slowly start moving and then get up. And that's, I guess, why I thought that the deer was, quote, alive, just it had the infection within it, killed by the truck, and then the zombie virus takes over and wakes it up.
Okay. Well, again, either way, like the transformation of this deer, just the way it moves, flips itself over and stands up is awesome. It looks great. Like in terms of questionable effects, this is not one. I am totally bought in to Zombie Bambi.
But it does make you wonder how far in advance this all was taking place. And when you see Seoul Station, I mean, honestly, I was a little amazed in watching Seoul Station, and I don't know if there's a certain element of Seoul Station having kind of ruined my sense of the timeline and stuff. But when you see that next morning, when you see Seok-woo driving with Soo-an to the train station, I mean, according to Seoul Station, the entire city has already been destroyed by zombies. So
Yeah.
how have they not heard any of this? Why are trains still leaving the station? That is an element I didn't fully understand.
Yes.
And so that's why, like, I'm not sure in the scope of prequels. It feels like it's more just, I don't know. I have to look at it maybe a little more concurrent rather than full on prequel.
I think that's smart. I think that's a smart way to look at it, because you're right. The only hint that we have any issues with, in Train to Busan is she's looking out the window and sees somebody get tackled. But it's very subtle.
But that's once she's on the train, right?
Yeah, right. They don't see anything in the car. But it's when she's on the train that she sees someone and he's already asleep. Like, that's the only hint. But we would have seen a lot more. Like, even in the station, it would have been a mess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it feels like, it almost feels like Seoul Station, concurrent, or like they just left on the train. Like that night before, they're driving around, they get to the train in the morning, and everything is falling apart at the same time. You're right. Concurrency is best.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make sense of Seoul Station. It's like Seoul Station is what they left behind when the train left the station.
That's kind of what I want to think.
Yeah. It does make me wonder, where is everybody at the point where they're driving, early that morning when they're driving to the station in Train to Busan? Like, where are those characters? Be a fun Easter egg if they wrote them in somehow.
Yeah, right.
And we just haven't seen them yet.
But yeah, it's an interesting zombie story. This is, in both of those projects, Train to Busan and in Seoul Station, in neither case do we really get a sense as to how this really came to be or when, other than the fact that, okay, well, obviously there was a deer, obviously it was infected. Is that the start of it, or had it already started with all these people and the deer just happens to be yet another byproduct of creatures that have been infected?
Yeah, right.
We don't really know. All we know is that we'll find out later, this biotech company somehow is responsible. Because, I mean, even when he's looking at the newspaper at work, and I shouldn't say the newspaper, but he's looking at a website, at some news, there is information on there that leads to the fact that, the biotech company probably was involved in some other stuff that's, and it's already starting. Like, there's a whole thing with the fish population and, all these things, which makes me really think that it had been developing for potentially days before it really has gotten to this point.
I wish I could read Korean, because it makes me just want to pause that frame on the website and read more of those details, because I have to imagine there's more on that page. It's subtle and fast, but that would be useful. Quick nod to just a really nice tie-in. There is one thing on their drive over to the train station where he's about to go through a light and he stops and there are a bunch of emergency vehicles driving around. I love that bit because she's been playing with the window and the window's down, and she puts her hand out and she catches some ash that is floating in the air and looks over, and it turns out there's a giant fire in a skyscraper, and it's the ash that's floated over from that fire, and presumably that's where the emergency vehicles are going. And we don't, at this point, know if there's a direct connection between, what is happening in the world re-zombies and the fact that there's a fire. Could be totally natural, coincidence. But I really love that moment. It's a nice, awesome, intense beat, and it's actually very sweet because she is precious, this little girl. She's absolutely precious in this movie. So that's my point.
Well, and then let's just talk a little bit about this father-daughter pair that we have. I mean, Seok-woo is this overworking dad. I mean, it's kind of a lot of the characters, I suppose you could argue, are fairly archetypical characters, where we have a dad who works too much, doesn't pay enough attention to his kid. He's divorced. His kid just wants to spend her birthday with mom, who lives down in Busan, and he's up in Seoul and is like, I don't want to take the train trip down there. And she's like, I can do it by myself. And he's like, no. And he finally agrees, only because he watches this recital performance at school and sees her freeze up. She's trying to sing this Aloha, the Hawaiian Aloha song, and freezes. And as he learns later, she freezes because she was singing it for him and he wasn't there, and she was looking for him, and the fact that he wasn't there caused her to freeze. And so out of guilt, he ends up deciding, okay, I'm going to take you. And so this is really kind of a father-daughter. I don't know if we'd say rekindling their relationship, but certainly he's trying to figure out how to be a better dad. And that's kind of the family side of our story.
And lovely moments that are quick and build a lot of structure to that relationship when he gives her the Wii, the Nintendo Wii, and he's so happy that he's able to give her something that kids are into. He had to ask advice from his minion, and he comes with his Wii, and she looks over at the Wii that's already hooked up on her TV in her bedroom that he gave her for Children's Day that year, which is wonderful and sad. As a dad, that's a sad thing.
Yes. Well, what do you think of the this setup for our story in the scope of a film like this where zombies are going to be attacking everybody? We know that's coming. We're kind of starting to meet our characters, and this is the first pair that we have of the father-daughter. How does this pair work for you?
Well, I love it because for him, maybe it's because my lens is from the lens of the dad, that, this is a dead man walking kind of story for him, right? He's relinquishing his daughter, and his journey on this train is very much his journey of like the closer they get to Busan. Let's say there were no zombies, the closer he gets to giving his daughter over to mom, who already left him because of his selfishness. Like at some point you wonder, would he come to terms with his own selfishness if it weren't for this zombie outbreak? And I just love watching him sort of be tested as a result of all of these environmental elements, like testing his level of empathy and engagement in his family. And what does that really mean to him? What is the value of his job, his big fancy job, as he starts to meet people who have such disrespect for him and what he does? And they don't even know him. Like, they just know what role he serves.
Well, and part of that is because the way he behaves at the start of the film, and he really learns how to behave because of his daughter. Like, initially, he shuts the door on Sang-hwa and his wife, Seong-kyung, they're the married couple and she's pregnant, and he doesn't let them in, but eventually does. But, even the homeless person, like, he keeps telling his daughter, you don't have to be nice to everybody. You don't have to try helping people, stand up, take care of yourself. You're the number one priority here. And through her actions, he slowly starts realizing that that's the wrong way to do it. And I mean, eventually to the point where he is sacrificing himself for some of these people.
For sure. And I think he makes a good case for it, but I think the little girl is sort of the change agent for him, like being the vessel of his learning how to find kindness in other people is fantastic. And she's just really great. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she is.
She's just great.
Yeah.
Kim Soo-han.
And then we have the husband and wife pair I already mentioned, where she's pregnant. That's, Seong-kyung and Sang-hwa as the husband and wife. And I love this pair, especially him. He's Ma Dong-seok is the actor. And seeing him, I don't know, there's something about the way that he plays this character is just like so delightful. And he really likes to stick it to our fund manager because of what he does, and also because, he locked him out and stuff. But seeing like how this is a person who actually is incredibly handy to have, aside from the fact that he's built like a boxer, he comes up with, with our baseball player, Young-guk, comes up with the idea to like tape a bunch of stuff to your arms to protect yourself from bites and stuff as you're pushing through the crowds. And so they make for a fun pair, and it's fun to meet at the beginning. Again, the characters really play to archetype, but, with the pregnant wife, and he's the kind of the husband who's, being super gentle with her because, she's pregnant. Got to be careful because they can go crazy. It's like they're playing into those archetypes a lot, but still like watching them as they kind of become characters over the course of the film is really fun.
I love them. Love the two older ladies, the sisters who are on the train together, wandering about, kind of reliving the olden days. They are part of. But the one who is I think if it weren't for the zombies, he'd be our real sort of social antagonist, is the giant man-child in a suit.
Yeon Suk.
Who just wants to be taken care of. He is the spirit of entitlement alive and well in South Korea. I just love watching how he foments division on this train as a result of his, survival instinct. This is what happens when he is put in a place of fear. And And I love how he is handled.
The most interesting moment is when Seok Woo is confronting him for not letting them in, and they could, if he had opened the door earlier, they could have saved people's lives. Like that, then Sang-hwa wouldn't have been bitten and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and Yeon Suk's reaction is like, "This man's infected," and like starts riling his group against Seok Woo and his group, and it turns into these two rival groups where then they basically force the dad and his group to go get locked into the vestibule, which ends up being really for the best. But still, it's interesting the way that, like you said, his survival instinct is to kind of climb on the backs of everybody, and even if it results in them drowning in the river. It's like whatever he can do to survive is what he's going to do.
Yeah. He's a rough character, and the fact that it comes down to him at the end of the movie and Dad who has learned lessons, and Young Suk who has learned nothing, and both end up sacrificing themselves, I think is the message. Like, the Young Suk obviously doesn't sacrifice himself; he becomes a zombie and thrown off the train, and then
spoiler horn.
Obviously, Dad, being infected, also throws himself off the train. So I think that's I think a great message, and it kind of bugs me. I was reading some of the critical reviews of this thing, and people who are writing that this doesn't have the heart. Like, these characters don't learn lessons, as a result of their experience, and I totally disagree. I actually think this movie is quite efficient in the way it presents the overall arc of many characters as they go through this harrowing adventure, horrific adventure together, and the lessons they are forced to learn as a result. I actually think it's a really tight emotional story, as much as it is a zombie movie with some, creative use of stunts and makeup, and it all looks great. And I do think these characters go on a journey together as a result of their of what they're seeing.
Literally,
this is
from
on a train.
Seoul to Busan.
It's a journey on a journey.
They really do take a journey.
Yeah,
I don't know if I think that I don't know if I see as many characters taking a like full character journey as far as like character arcs and everything, other than our protagonist. The rest of them really do largely seem along for the ride and just doing what they can to survive. I don't know if there needs to be in a story like this. I think having our hero have his journey and learning his lessons, I think, can be enough. And, watching the rest of the characters kind of just playing their roles in the scope of all this, I think works for me.
Well, I think it does too. I would just suggest that our principal guys, right? That we have, as you says, Sang-hwa and Suk-woo and the baseball player. What was his name? Jungkook. So the three of them each have their own little directions, right? Like, and they all sacrifice in their own way. And I think particularly Sang-hwa is, he also has this parent-child relationship. He doesn't have a child yet, but he has this pregnant wife, and he is, you get to see him in his sort of becoming a father, and his protective instinct, and the way he sacrifices and says, look, jerk, to Dad, you got to take care of her, because he has to end up sacrificing himself for everybody, and it becomes yet another kind of avatar of change for Dad, our principal character, by what he's willing to do, even for his unborn child and his wife, even though he's not a father yet. So I think those sequences are tight sequences, and they leave me feeling fulfilled that characters have learned something as a result of their experience.
I guess I can see that. I just don't know if it's as again, I think that they end up feeling like they're fairly archetypal in the lessons that they're learning because it fits with their characters. Jungkook and who's the baseball player, and Jin-hee the cheerleader, he's kind of awkward with her, but comes to appreciate her by the time they're surviving together, and she gets bitten and she attacks him. Like, there are emotional beats with all these characters that I think work well because we like the characters so much. I guess I'm just saying I don't necessarily think that it's like that the script has built in very extensive character arcs for any of these characters, but I do think they're there as the archetypes themselves that end up working, like the new father who is, they're all really kind of there, it's one of those scripts where it's like he's kind of there to teach our protagonist the lesson that you have to be there for your kid. Watch, I'm going to sacrifice myself for the betterment of my child. Like, it's those sorts of archetypes that end up working, and you like Sang-hwa so much that, of course, it's easy to kind of like go along with his story because he is such a great character. And so I guess I think we're appreciating it in just different. We're looking at it from different angles, though.
Well, I think so, too. I think that, from my perspective, there's a lot going on in this movie, right? This movie doesn't slow down to my eye. And the fact that these angles on the characters even exist, even if they are archetypes, the fact is I do love these characters, to your point, and that they're able to shoehorn a little bit of this heart into the movie that is otherwise about amazing stunts and a lot of great work to bring these zombies to life on this train and in these train stations is a real testament to the film. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. This is not just an empty effects movie. This feels like a movie with more personality than that.
And again, it's just these characters are just such delights. It's they may be archetypes, but they work so well. And Yeon Guk, as this young baseball player, like, he's got this very painful moment for him as it's I think him, Sang-hwa, and Seok-woo are stuck in a train car much farther back, and now they're trying to work their way forward through all the train cars to get back with the rest of the group. And they, of course, have to cut through all these train cars that are full of zombies. And they walk into the train car full of all his friends, the baseball team, who are now all zombies. And he freezes, and he's unable to actually help in fighting through the zombie horde because it's all of his friends, and he freezes. He sees all of that, and that's a great moment with this character because he's like, I can't do it. And so it's simple, but it works so effectively. And Choi Woo-sik, who plays him, I mean, we've seen him in Parasite. We talked about him in that movie. I mean, he's just a fantastic actor who plays that sort of emotional beat really well in this film.
Yeah, he really is. Like, for a character that could have been, central casting, right? Like, he is really fantastic. And I do think his moment at the end when he's holding his now girlfriend in his arms, and as she is turning, is a really special moment of weird sacrifice. Like, why is he doing this? The power of his relationship over the course of this, this train ride together has really brought them together. And what sort of solace comes from grief? The fact that he sort of lets himself, be turned in her arms.
Yeah.
Really, that sort of switch over is hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's hard and compelling.
And you have that with the older sisters, too, Jong-gil and In-gil, who, one of them is trapped with in the back car and doesn't make it through and ends up turning. And so the other sister is so devastated by the turning of her sister that she basically goes to the door and opens it because it's like she can't live without her. And so this is one of those hard things in these zombie films that I think portrays relationships in such an interesting way, where it's like, how do you handle your relationship with this person when they're still there standing in front of you? It's just they're not themselves anymore. Now they are this zombie. And, that's an interesting element that I think we do get in zombie films. We talked about our relationship with zombie films in our member pre-show chat and just kind of the varieties of zombie films. But one of the things we didn't talk about in that is this idea of your family members when they've turned. Like, how do you deal with that as far as your relationship with them from this point? It's like, that's a challenge. And, you see that in things like Shaun of the Dead when his mom turns and how hard that is. But it's one of these situations where people are going to handle that differently because, again, they're there standing in front of you. It's just they're not necessarily themselves anymore.
Well, and interestingly, every principal character in this movie has to deal with that. Even Dad, his experience of that is, talking to his mom on the phone, and she changes on the phone.
Yeah. Right.
Which is a wonderful bit of just sort of, I guess, audio performance. Like it is really intense to watch him listen to her as she loses her humanity. I think it's fantastic. I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about the zombies, and I think we get some really wonderful moments, and this movie really builds up because there are so many of them. The transformation happens so fast, in terms of the pandemic spread of this thing. It happens over the course of a day. The government loses control over the course of effectively a day, and we see them on the train. We see them. There are some great montages as they get into. I think they're passing through Daegu Station, and before they get to Daegu Station, I think before they stop, and there's the helicopter flying over, and the zombies are hanging from the legs of the helicopter and fall onto some skateboarders, which I think is awesome. Just some great moments, and those zombies get back up again and start running. What is your take on the physicality of our zombie hordes?
Well, it's worth noting, like, they were really going for the fast, creepy moving zombies as opposed to the Romero zombies. My understanding, they were referencing the video game 7 Days to Die, and the anime Ghost in the Shell, and also the game Silent Hill. And so I think there were a number of different looks that they were going for. And what I enjoy about what they are bringing to the zombies here is really unnatural movements. I mean, they move like people, I suppose, once they're up, but like it's when they fall, like somehow like they're getting up and they're moving their arms in kind of gross ways where it looks like things aren't necessarily where they're supposed to be, but the zombies just don't care.
Yeah.
And
this is a movie about sockets.
Yeah. I love, though, there are some moments in the train cars when they're moving through and you just have this swath of zombies, and it's a narrow space, and trying to figure out how you navigate that. I really enjoyed that. I liked that you ended up with these elements learning, like when it goes dark, the zombies kind of suddenly can't see you anymore and they kind of lose their senses. And that was kind of an interesting element that they employ. There are some moments like that where I'm like, I don't know, like, why did the zombies just so completely stop right away? Where, like, when a phone rings or something and it's still dark, then they still charge it. Like, if they had just seen you there, wouldn't they? It seemed like it was a little too sudden. Like, I don't know. But there were moments like that I really enjoyed that. It was just, some of it was like a little, I felt like it was convenience for the story as far as like how fast they switched off or switched back on,
Yeah,
No, you don't have an issue with that?
Yeah, I agree with you. No, I do. I mean, I agree with you. I guess it's an issue when I talk about it, but when I'm watching the movie, like when she sprays the water on the glass and puts the paper on and all the zombies chill out because they can't see, like, object permanence is legit, right? Like they become effectively animal toddlers, and toddlers have the same thing. Like, you turn out the lights and the toddler stops or starts crying or something, but it doesn't remember that I'm still there. I can play peekaboo all the live long day and get the same kind of reaction. So as soon as I like transpose like that behavior, if you just take away object permanence, then these things become a little bit more rational to me, and I was able to buy into it. I think the sequence that I have the most trouble with, that is also incredibly intense, is, I mean, we have this long journey of going through 3, I think, train cars, getting to the other side, and there's a fight in 2 of them, and eventually they get to the point where they have to start making their way through a lot of zombies, and they do it with, by timing the tunnels. And they have to climb up on the luggage racks and slide their way down to the opposite end of the tunnel. That's the one where if I stop too long, I'll pull myself right out of the movie, because I just never really found a way to buy that completely. There were a lot of zombies. They were very, very close. And I just think they would have heard them. Like, they already built the rule, to your point, about the cell phone ringing. And I think they break the rule so immediately after with that slide across the luggage racks.
Well, and also it's like, then we're buying that the luggage racks suddenly are completely empty, except for the one bag that he
The one
uses.
bag.
And I'm like, and I was just like, I felt like there had to have been more bags up there. So, I mean, but that was one of those things. And again, it's like those sorts of things. Like, we see them use the water and the newspaper to kind of, shield them, put it on the glass and to stop the zombies from attacking. Why is that the only time they do that? There are several times where zombies end up bashing through the glass because they're so determined. It's like, well, why did you stop with your newspaper trick? Like, you figured out a great trick. Why aren't you doing that some more? And
A great trick, because then this is the newspaper on glass movie, and they needed to move on.
Right. So, I mean, there are elements like that throughout the story, but largely, I think that it's fun. Oh, and also another thing is, like, they seem to kind of turn as quickly as the story needs them to. Like, sometimes a person is attacked and seems to transform into a zombie immediately. Sometimes, usually when it's like one of our characters who we like, it takes a long time and we see them slowly kind of turning. And I'm like, why is that one taking so much longer than the others? And so...
Yeah, that's like the dad is case example. Like, he gets bitten, and he then has time to monologue, to teach, here's how a train works. And also, you're going to be okay, girl. And I need to walk solemnly the length of the engine car and stand for a while before things get serious. Like, it's just long. So I struggled with that too.
And when I say I struggle, I mean, I still have a great time watching the movie. Like, these are elements that I certainly notice, but it is one of those things when you're setting up rules in a world like this, like, sometimes I'm like, I just don't get it. And I suppose you could argue, well, he just had a little bite on his hand as opposed to somebody who had their jugular had been gnawed halfway off. And so probably the blood gets in a lot quicker. And so, I can see some logic to some of that, but it is one of those things that, it does end up in your head.
Yeah. The most intense sequence for me, I want to talk about the East Daegu train station stop, because I think that was so well done in terms of building the intensity and the hope for survival, even though we're only 40 minutes into the movie. They get to the train station in Daegu, and they get off the train, and they walk carefully around wondering, where are all the people at? And they get into the station. Our principal dad has already had a conversation with I'm assuming a soldier buddy of his, who says, I can get you out, but you have to go
Daejeon,
a different
right?
direction.
Not Daegu. Daegu is the blocked one. You're talking about the one where they go inside?
You're right. This is the one where they go in.
Right.
They go inside.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yes. In fact, the sign over the train in Daejeon Station says, "Here's the train to Daegu."
Yeah.
So you're right. So they've trapped a lot of people, the zombies, in the train car. So all of our human living people get off, and they wander through, and they are wandering through this completely empty train station. And our buddy takes his daughter and walks down a side hallway, and this weird homeless guy follows him. All of that is super intense because there are no people, but there's a lot of mess.
That's an interesting element to just bring up, because this also speaks to lessons that Seok-woo has to learn, because he is still a little more on the selfish side. He calls a government agent that he knows who's in Daejeon and says, "Hey, where should I go?" And this person says, "Oh, don't go to the place where everyone normally goes. You need to come to this East End," or whatever it's called. And so that's why he convinces his daughter, who's just like, "Well, we should tell everybody." He's like, no, don't worry about everybody. And so it's just him and his daughter. And then, of course, as you said, this homeless man follows. But this is still this lesson that he has to learn about not being as selfish. And of course, it doesn't really bode well for everybody. But to your point, the way that the tension builds is it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting, especially as they get through all of the sort of quarantined off areas and they walk down those stairs, and the reveal as they're all on the stairs that that the soldiers who were purportedly there to help them put them into quarantine have actually all been turned and have been trapped in the station and are just trying to get out. And then they turn around and the biggest obstacle becomes the stairs that our people are on in the first place, like watching the clumsy wave of passengers as they have to get off the escalator and jump over the railings and climb back up these stairs as these soldiers, now zombie soldiers, are chasing them up the stairs, is really intense. And I think it's just, I mean, it's a great, great sequence in a movie full of really solid, surprise action sequences.
And just that's another moment that really kind of gives us that separation between the characters as the COO, our evil COO character convinces the train attendant, the one who's left alive, that they need to take off. They're not going to wait for people, even though our hero, Seok-woo, along with several other people, are still behind trying to get this door locked. And of course, this is what ends up separating the two groups as they all get back onto the train. But this is that the evil businessman at work that kind of forces this situation into existence.
And it feels like just watching him talk to the train attendant. It's the train attendant. It's in fact largely the secondary characters in this movie that push back on, we have to get the others. Like, I hear what you're saying. We can't leave without the others. We're going to wait for the others, and tend to push back on the spirit of entitlement that comes from these business class passengers. And that's good stuff. That's good stuff. It also levels up the mob of zombies, because this is where we get to see zombies outside of the train, and there are a lot more of them. And we have the sequences they run across the sort of sky bridge over the train, and they put so much pressure on the glass that they start pouring out. The glass breaks and they pour out on top of the train in some numbers. And so here we are, like, starting to see more and more of the zombie allusions to what World War Z was also trying to do, right? Just show masses and masses of infected, that you're not fighting individual zombies anymore. You're fighting a horde, and the horde moves much different than you might expect from other movies. And I think this movie actually handles it really, really well. There aren't so many zombies at any one point that it feels like liquid, right? That it feels like this is much more of a particle simulation. They all feel like individual horrible things, but still I get a sense of scope that works very well.
Yeah, and I suppose for me, the biggest moment of that is, when they are in Daegu Station and they're trying to finally get on that one engine as it's taking off. And as it's going, suddenly this horde of zombies runs, and several of them grab on, and then several behind them grab onto them. And it turns into this giant wave of zombies that are kind of held on by a few at the front, but as this massive horde of zombie, it's like this giant blanket is being tugged behind the train of zombies. And then of course it is, how do you get rid of all of these? And Seok-woo has to start bashing fingers and trying to force them to let go. And so it's like that sort of moment where it's like pretty terrifying that these things just, there is no thinking in them at all. It's just attack.
There's another moment where there's an explosion and the train sort of falls on its side, and the weight of the train cars that is now just sort of full of zombies. Eventually the glass breaks and the zombies all kind of pour out in order, like as the camera pulls away, you see them all flood out onto the ground over and putting our principal characters in great peril. And even that doesn't take me out of that is very clearly an effect sequence, and it looks great to me. So there's just a lot going on in this finale where they're showing a lot of zombies at once, and it all plays.
And that was such a fun sequence anyway, because being stuck by a train car crash, and then you're underneath this slanted train car under windows that are full of zombies who want you, and you have to figure out how to get out from under this train before those windows break. I mean, it makes for some great tense moments. So yeah, they did a great job of building all of that.
For sure.
I don't know if we've mentioned the director, but Yeon Sang-ho I think did a really fun job with kind of crafting those scenes based on Park Ju-suk's script.
This was Yeon Sang-ho's first, right? Am I right about that? No, this is not. This was not his first. This was just like fifth or something.
Or no, actually, just as director, third feature.
Have not seen The King of Pigs or The Fake, but definitely on board with his zombie fare.
Well, this is his first live action. Those were both anime films that he did, I believe, right?
Yeah, and he was in it. I was watching some behind the scenes. Did you watch any of the extra features that came with it?
No.
You don't really learn a whole lot. It's really just literally behind the scenes shooting sequences. But at the end of one of them, he does talk, and it almost feels like a party speech. Like it is so banal and so absent of any human emotion that it feels like he might be have just gotten bitten himself.
Huh.
He doesn't. I love the work he's done here. He feels his chill is on lock. He is very, very low key as a guy.
Yeah.
No judgment.
Interesting. Well, I am certainly curious to look at some more of his stuff to kind of see what else he does.
You got anything else you want to talk about? We good?
No, I think we should move forward. So we'll be right back. But first, our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by Charlie Ryan, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at d-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm. And if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. How to Do It awards season. Oh, wait. Is there a sequel and remake?
Well, we're not.
Did I skip over sequels and remakes?
We'll talk about the sequel next time, and obviously we've already talked about the prequel. But as far as remakes go, it's worth bringing up here at this point, I suppose, that this is a film that had been planned to do since 2016. It had been optioned to do an English language remake of it. 2018, it kind of ended up, Warner Brothers was going to distribute it. They had Indonesian director Timo Tjahjanto in talks to direct, and James Wan producing. As of December 2021, it was called The Last Train to New York. And it was actually, and I suppose this is why we're talking about it here, they had scheduled it to release just this past weekend, April 21st, 2023, as of the date that we're recording. However, Warner Brothers decided, no, we're going to release Evil Dead Rise that weekend, and we'll push this back. And so at this point, it still has not been made, and fingers crossed it doesn't, because why? You can just watch this one. It's fantastic. So,
right. So is the implication that they haven't made it or haven't done any work on it, that it's never gone into shooting?
They haven't. No, they pulled it off the release schedule. And I don't know if there is no word at this point if it actually is going to be back on the docket to make.
Interesting.
But I don't know. My hunch is that they're still planning on getting it made.
Well, if anything serves any sort of remake, it is a greater span of time between a remake and this original. It would be too soon. This movie is too good, too accessible, and really, to your point, just go watch this. Yeah. It's great.
Exactly.
How about award season? This fared okay?
Did pretty well for a genre film. 35 wins with 39 other nominations. At KOFRA, the Korean Film Reporters Association, it had 2 wins. Ma Dong-seok won for Best Supporting Actor, and Yeon Sang-ho won the Discovery Award for Director. Over at the Saturn Awards, the Sci-Fi, Fantasy, and Horror, it was nominated for Best Horror Film, but lost to Don't Breathe. And at the Baek Sang Arts Awards, this is one of South Korea's more prestigious film awards. It was nominated for Best Film, but lost to The Wailing, which is a fantastic film. I would probably pick The Wailing as well. Let's see, won Best New Director. And Kim Ui-sung won for Best Supporting Actor. He's our the evil businessman, beating out Ma Dong-seok, who was also nominated for supporting actor. And over at the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, it won Best Foreign Language Film, and Gong Yoo was nominated for Best Actor, but lost to John Goodman in 10 Cloverfield Lane. That's another film we've talked about on this show in one of our bonus episodes.
And we like John Goodman on that.
John Goodman was fantastic in that.
Yeah, he was. All right. How'd it do at the box office? Tell me it made some money.
Oh yeah, Yeon Sang-ho's film had a budget of $8.5 million or $10.6 million in today's dollars. The movie premiered at Cannes in 2016 before it released in South Korea July 20th, 2016. It opened here in the States 2 days later in a fairly limited release, opposite Star Trek Beyond, Lights Out, Ice Age Collision Course, Nerve, and Batman the Killing Joke. The movie did okay here domestically, earning $2.1 million, but did much better overseas. It became the highest-grossing Korean film in Malaysia, Hong Kong, and Singapore. And back home in South Korea, it was the highest-grossing film of the year. It ended up earning $93.5 million internationally for a total gross of $119.6 million in today's dollars. That lands the film with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $923.7 thousand.
Just teasing at $1 million a minute. That's the kind of return we want to see in our AppFilm report. I love this movie. I'm really looking forward to revisiting Peninsula with you next week because this was a treat.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this one in a while, and so it was nice to revisit, and I had a great old time with it. Well, we'll be right back for our ratings, but first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, as Pete just said, Peninsula.
미쳤어? 거길 또 들어간다고?
You get the truck, come back with the money. That's $2.5 million per head. If you come back alive.
진짜네.
살고 싶으면 타요. 아저씨는 들깨생활 처음인가 보네.
중박국질 무려
야, 61번 빨리 안 나가! 야, 61번!
해가 지면 움직이자. 내가 또 나서야 되나?
지금!
잡아!
Okay, Andy, Letterboxd. You've heard of Letterboxd. It's your favorite social media network for movie lovers, and we've fallen in love with it. We put our watch lists on there, review movies on there, ratings on there. You can share reviews, read other people's reviews. It's just a nice place to be. And you can, if you want, remove all the ads from Letterboxd and support the fantastic Kiwi team that makes this thing by upgrading to a pro or patron membership. And we have a discount code. The discount code is NEXTREEL. Or you can just visit thenextreel.com/letterboxd, and that discount code will get you 20% off that upgrade. It works for renewals as well. Andy, what are you going to do? It's a genre movie. You're going to throw some stars at it, but are there quibbles because it's a genre movie, or do you rate it based on what the movie is trying to do? How do you approach it?
Well, that's a lot of questions that you just threw at me.
So many questions. All at once.
I mean, I don't generally rate movies down because they're doing what they set out to do, even if I didn't like them as much. I mean, I had a great time watching this one. I think they do a great job in the genre. I just think it's a film that I really enjoy anyway. Initially, when I first watched it, I rated it 3.5 stars and a heart, and I think I'm going to bump it up to 4 stars and a heart.
What is it that gives you that extra half star? this time.
I don't know. I really enjoyed the characters and I enjoyed the ride. So it was a fun journey for me, and it ends on that bittersweet delight of seeing our young girl. She's walking through the tunnel, Sue Ann, and she's singing that song, and that's what keeps them alive. And it's just like that little moment of humanity, I just thought was really sweet. And so, yeah, just really enjoyed it.
I am and have been a 4-star in this movie for some time, and I don't know, just because of who I am, it feels like I should bump this up to 5 stars. I'm not quite there yet. I think we went ahead and pulled out some of the rules that get broken. That they set up these rules and then break the rules, and maybe that's where my 1 star falls. But I'm totally open to loving Train to Busan even more over time.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Very fun. Well, don't forget, visit thenextreel.com/letterboxd, and you can get your Patron or Pro membership. It works for renewals as well. So what did you think about Train to Busan? We would love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
I know which one you picked, and I know which one I picked, and I don't think either of us really went for critical substance in the reviews that we picked. Do you want to go first? Because I'll probably be screaming a lot of mine.
Sure, that's fine. I did a 3.5. You might have seen this on Letterboxd because it is the most popular review there, but it's awfully funny. 3.5 stars by Iana, who says, "Is there a name for the superiority complex you have when you criticize everyone in zombie movies for making stupid decisions, even though you know you'd be the first to die in the same situation?"
Not only would I be the first to die, man, I'd just turn and run into it. Because it's like, what's the point?
Just own it.
Mine is a 5-star review from Maskull, who does say this review may contain spoilers. Almost 2 hours of me yelling at my screen, "Run, run, run! No! Watch out! Oh, no! Don't kill that guy! Watch out, little girl! Freaking love that dude! Run, run, run! Jesus, that was amazing! Go, go, go! I really love that dude! Watch out!" Yes, I cried. "Save the kid! Oh, she's so cute! Holy Christ! No, don't kill her! I hope that guy gets munched! Watch out! Cool! Run, run, run! F that guy! Don't shoot! The kid can't sing, but she's adorable!" And finally, I love the music playing over the end credits. I love it when people emote in their Letterboxd reviews.
Oh, so good.
Thanks, Letterboxd. It is hard to believe we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you, and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
The Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals links to the source material from all of our adapted film discussions. Purchasing through our links support the show at no extra cost to you.
In Season 12, the focus was big franchises and series. We covered both Paddington films, adapted from the beloved children's book character created by Michael Bond.
Oh, I love those films so much.
Hugh Grant is perfect.
For our Pitch Perfect series, the first film was adapted from Mickey Rapkin's nonfiction book about collegiate a cappella competitions.
It's like a short story of my life, literally. I lived college a cappella.
Sing it, brother.
I lived college a cappella.
I didn't mean literally.
You know who you're talking to, right? The Twilight Saga dominated the season with 5 films adapted from Stephenie Meyer's vampire romance novels, Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, and the 2 Breaking Dawn parts.
Dominated with awkward romance and nonsense logic is more like it.
That too.
Another Thin Man brought us back to Dashiell Hammett's only Thin Man sequel based on other Hammett material, The Farewell Murder, that wasn't just based on the characters from the first film.
We talked about Trainspotting and its sequel, T2 Trainspotting, adapted from Irvine Welsh's novels.
I hate the sequel's name.
I do too.
And the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy adapted from J.R.R. Tolkien's epic fantasy series.
Love these.
Extended editions all the way, baby.
Plus, all the Mission Impossible films based on the 1960s TV series.
And we've still got at least one more to go.
Members got to hear us chat about The Hustler and The Color of Money, adapted from Walter Tevis's books.
Get all of these books and more at our originals page, thenextreel.com/originals.
Start your next read from the movies we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals.